Good afternoon, everybody. 2 minutes late, not so bad. I had to fill Mom's printer with more ink. You know how these things go. Hope everybody's doing well. This is today's Ukraine update. Lots to discuss today in a very good way. We're very excited about this. Ukraine obviously kicking Russian butt in the last several days. I'm going to be talking to you a lot about that. And oops, let me just check here. I'm going to go live so I can watch as well to see your comments. Hang on here. Yep. Here we go. There we go. Watch. Now I can see you guys on TikTok. Excellent. So yeah, a lot of great news from Ukraine today. Also, I have got exciting news. I think we've got two great guests this week. Tomorrow, and I just got this booked like in bed last night at midnight or this morning, both. Tom Much, who is a Kiwi, New Zealand war reporter in Ukraine. His specialty has been focusing on Eastern Ukraine, so the timing is perfect for this. And he is going to check in with us live tomorrow from Ukraine at 2 p.m. Central Time, 3 p.m. Eastern. So that's 3 p.m. New York City time. Be sure to check that. That's going to be great. I've already set these up, by the way, on YouTube. You can find it on my homepage, on TikTok. Go to my homepage as well. You'll see the various lives. Click them, and you'll see Tom's register so that you are notified. And Wednesday, we've got Matt Lewis, who's very interesting. Matt's a conservative Republican, smart guy, good guy, I would say, too. Like Matt's always been he's a good guy. Not a fan of Donald Trump at all, but also not a Democrat. And I just wanted to talk to Matt. He's written some really interesting articles recently about our democracy, about Trump, about the elections. And I thought it'd be kind of fun to have him as well. So Matt's coming Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. So Matt's at 2 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday, and Much is tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern, so Tuesday. So make sure you guys register for both of those because I think they're going to be a lot of fun. You can see the topics. Oh, there we go. The topics we've got set up there. I also want to thank Maddie, who is one of our watchers, who created the template. You see, we got the new template. Maddie thought the one I was using wasn't fancy enough. So he took it on himself to create a new one, and it's really beautiful. And then Syndicate did some final tweaks to it as well. So it's pretty cool, and I like it a lot. And I think it, anyway, it looks fancy, makes us look like fancy news. So, all right, guys, let me dig right in. So, the other thing I'm going to keep doing here, thank you for the gifts already on TikTok. Oh, yeah, let me remind folks on TikTok, the only gifts that don't work with this new format are things like glasses or hats. So things that go on my body that actually adapt to my body, don't use those. They won't work. You can buy them and it gives me money, but you won't get the gift. So all the other gifts work. You saw that September thing, the sea, all those butterflies, they all work. Just don't do that. And for those of you on YouTube, of course, feel free to use the super chat function if you want to help support my work. I did spend most of the day doing this, for example. Thank you for the September again. So your money helps support my work to keep doing this. So I appreciate it. All right, so let's dig in. So first one I'm going to show you as I dig right in. So first topic is, well, much of today's show is we're talking about the Kharkiv blitzkrieg, which is the Ukrainian assault to start fighting back the Russians in the east. Now, this is a nice map from the Institute for the Study of War showing the region total in blue that the Ukrainians have won back since February 28th or so when the Russians invaded. So that's not all the last 5 days. The last 5 days, if you can tell, if you look closely where the red and the blue meet, look a little bit that way, and you're going to see the town of Kharkiv. Everything from Kharkiv, well, hold on. I'm going to actually switch my video here because it's the opposite of what I'm looking at, and it's driving me crazy. There we go. Everything from Kharkiv this way is new. So it's still not a small amount, but that's the total land that they've accumulated. So just to give you a sense of how well the Ukrainians have done in the last 5 days, since last Wednesday when the blitzkrieg began, Ukraine has recaptured most of Kharkiv Oblast, which is 3,000 square kilometers or 1,158 square miles. Now, for perspective on how quickly this happened, okay? Thursday night, Zelensky gives a speech every evening to the people, the president of Ukraine. Thursday night, Zelensky said he had retaken 1,000 square kilometers. in the last day. Saturday, they'd taken 2,000 square kilometers. Sunday, they'd taken 3,000 square kilometers. So more would be expected today. We haven't had the latest numbers today, but that's pretty huge. Since the beginning of Actually, I think today's number from Zelensky is 6,000. I think it is. So they're up to 6,000 square kilometers that have been liberated since the beginning of this offensive. When you go back to the beginning of the war, the Ukrainians have liberated 60,000 square kilometers. So this is about 10% of the total land that they've won back, but it's still pretty significant. We'll talk more about that. The Russians fled so quickly that they left tons of equipment, tons of ammunition. Let me give you some examples here, including some really good stuff, such as the T-80 BVM, which entered service in only 2017 and is one of Russia's latest main battle tanks. So this isn't just the stuff that the Russians, remember when they had to bring out all the stuff from the 1950s? This is better than that. Some of their most recent weapons, they left, and they left a lot of ammunition. And one of the reasons, not that that's important, I mean, we know why it's important, but what's interesting about it is the Russian Defense Ministry is now trying to claim that, oh, you've got to understand, the reason that we left wasn't because we were fleeing or withdrawing, we were simply regrouping. Well, the thing is, if you're going to regroup, you don't leave your best tanks and tons and tons and tons of ammunition, right? You leave your tanks and your ammunition and all the weapons because you're running like hell and they're slowing you down. So not that you believed what Russia was telling you, but I mean, it's a good comeback to keep in mind. Now, let me just look at this. I've got a ton of news, like I said, today. The Ukraine destroyed, this is interesting. Forbes did an analysis showing that, Forbes magazine, that Ukraine has destroyed nearly $700 million with an M worth of Russian equipment in the last few days. And at this point, the euro and the dollar is pretty much the same, so that would be the same in euros. Ukraine's general staff said Russia has lost 2,850 troops and 590 pieces of equipment from September 6th to September 11th. So that's from last Wednesday to yesterday, Sunday, which Forbes estimates is worth over $670 million. Ukraine's military has also reportedly seized 129 pieces of equipment, estimated at 104 million. In other words, there was a lot of equipment. That's maybe 15% of the equipment wasn't destroyed. It was 10 to 15%. It wasn't destroyed, and it was equipment they could use. So there's a lot of good equipment the Ukrainians are getting. Russia also failed to mine the land when they were retreating. When the Russians left Kyiv, they had to abandon it, but it wasn't necessarily a flat-out panicked run. Remember when the Russians invaded in February, and then by the end of March, the Russians were forced out from that initial invasion. It's not like they were running in a panic. This time they were running in a panic. Last time in Kyiv, they actually sowed mines to try to slow down the Ukrainians. They were leaving and fleeing so quickly that they didn't sow any mines as they were leaving this area in Kharkiv. Again, shows you a little more of why it's important, of how this was not planned by the Russians. Why this matters in terms of the equipment the Ukrainians got. This is from the Institute for the Study of War. Furthermore, Russian forces retreating from Kharkiv Oblast are leaving behind large amounts of equipment and supplies that Ukrainian forces can use to continue counteroffensive operations. Now, Trent Telenko, who's one of the military analysts I like to follow, he had this to add about why that matters. The Kupiansk blitzkrieg has been running mainly on captured Russian vehicles, fuel, and ammo for the last 3 days. And the most important captured Russian vehicles are train engines and rail car rolling stock. 2 points there. One, he's saying for the last 3 days, the Ukrainians have been able to continue moving forward because they didn't even need supply lines. They didn't need just somebody to keep giving them more ammo from behind and giving them more fuel and more weapons. They had the Russian stocks with them. So they had Russian vehicles, they had Russian ammunitions, they had Russian fuel. It was all there. Now, keep in mind, one of the advantages that Ukraine has is Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union. Russia was part of the Soviet Union. a lot of the weapons Ukraine uses are Soviet weapons. They're the same weapons the Russians uses. So a lot of the stuff they were able to get, the artillery, the ammunition, whatever, is stuff that the Ukrainians know how to use and can use because they've got the same weapons. So it's great. The second part of what was interesting there, saying the most important thing that was captured were train engines, because you can transport the weapons with you, and railcar rolling stock. Railcar rolling stock, I had to Google the term because I'd never heard the term before. Railcar rolling stock simply means anything on train wheels. So it's a train car on wheels full of Russian equipment, ammunition, etc. That's all it is. So in other words, they found a ton of Russian goods on trains, and they've got the trains to move them along. So again, this has helped the Ukrainians continue the offensive, which is great. Yesterday, Sunday, September 11th, Ukraine, oh, this is great. This was how well the Ukrainians did just yesterday, which is kind of neat. Hold on, let me, hang on, Elise. Sorry, I was sitting on the other page, not looking. Let me tell you this one first, and then I'll look at Elise. Yesterday, September 11th, Ukraine captured yesterday 23 Russian tanks in one day. And that's only the tanks the experts could visually confirm Ukraine captured. In other words, they're not basing it on Ukrainian claims. These are the tanks that literally the experts were able to confirm and say, yep, it's real. 23 tanks in one day. To put that in perspective, that's 10% of the entire UK, United Kingdom, main battle tank fleet. It's a lot. Let me show you this too. Oh, I see Maddie is here today. Thank you, Maddie. Sorry, Maddie. Oh, I was going to tell you Maddie's name, and it scrolled. Oh, there we go. Maddie264, just so you guys can see who to thank for the new template. Thank you, Maddie. It's gorgeous. Elise is saying, doesn't it seem like Ukraine needs to go after Belgorod to make Kharkiv safe? What Elise is talking about, and let me pull up the initial territory liberated. You got to look closely at this, but if you can find Kharkiv, and as I told you, find the where red meets blue, and if you go just a little bit this way, you'll see the first town there is Kharkiv. You'll notice it's super close to the Russian border. That's all Russia this way. Super close to the Russian border, maybe 15, 20 miles. Well, if you go another 25 miles across the Russian border, you hit the Russian town of Belgorod. Belgorod is an important town because it's a big logistics hub. It's a big hub for ammunition and fuel and all sorts of things. And the Ukrainians have repeatedly hit it. They've blown up ammunition storage. They've blown up fuel storage and other, right? So important town for that. So Elise is saying, couldn't they go after it? I was going to show you a picture that somebody had posted this weekend, and then I didn't. They were showing that Belgorod is now within HIMARS range. HIMARS, those nice rocket systems we gave the Ukrainians, if you get to the border. The problem is the Ukrainians can't use HIMARS to attack Belgorod because they promised us, the Americans, that they wouldn't use American weapons to fire within Russia. So there's a problem there. Now, considering Belgorod is, maybe at most 25 miles from the border, I don't think there's any other system. They've got the MLRS, but the MLRS is the same problem. The multiple launch rocket system, which is similar to the HIMARS, were provided, I think, by the Brits and somebody else, maybe Norway, I don't recall, or the French. It's the same problem. They'd be using Western systems to hit Russia. So that's going to be an issue. Thank you for the seafloor. That's one of my faves. That's going to be an issue. So I agree with you. It would be nice if they hit them. I'm not sure if they've got weapons that are not Western weapons that they can do it with. So thus a concern. The tanks in one day. Oh, I know I was going to show you. The next thing is this picture. This is another new thing that I'm practicing with today, is using a bunch of these images to put up. So hopefully it goes well. This was really good. This was posted by Igor Schatz, who is this guy in New York who knows a lot about the military. He's funny. He's one of the best people out there, but he's not. I think he's like a fund manager or something else. It's kind of crazy, but a lot of the military folks retweet him. He's very well respected. What he's showing here is the bottom in red is the combined territories that the Russians won when they captured Severodonetsk and Lysychansk. Yes, Lysychansk and Severodonetsk. Severodonetsk was that, or is, that town that the Ukrainians and the Russians were fighting over for like a month and a half, remember? And we kept reporting on it. And I mean, literally, it was this blow by blow, back and forth. And remember, it was a big deal. Well, as he put it, it's written very small there, but he basically says that when the Ukrainians lost the combined land in red of Severodonetsk and the nearby town of Lysychansk, these pundits talked about the total collapse of the Ukrainian defense. The blue is the land the Russians have lost since last Wednesday. And what he wrote there on the side is, if that's the total collapse in red, what do you call the blue? Again, just to give you a sense of how much land the Ukrainians got. Again, in the grand scheme of things, the Ukrainians have got a lot more land they've got to get back. So, keep it in perspective in that sense. This was a huge victory and a turning point, but I don't know if it's the turning point in the war yet, but it's a huge victory. And again, as this shows. But what else we got? Actually, there's a lot of. I've got a really good one coming up for you guys. Okay, main background. I've sort of got my notes to myself too, so I can keep this clean. The freak out. So the Russians are freaking out in a panic about everything that's been happening. Not surprising. Deputies in 18 districts of Moscow and St. Petersburg have signed a document demanding Putin resign. That's a big deal. It is not something that happens. I say a big deal. It's not going to cause Putin to disappear tomorrow. It is a big deal, though, because this is a dictatorship. And a couple months ago, you wouldn't have seen something like this, or if you did, the people would have immediately been thrown out a window. Very interesting. Getting my dog's blanket. Very interesting that you're seeing this kind of a response in a dictatorship. That this kind of stuff is happening. At the same time, Chechny's Ramzan Kadyrov. Kadyrov is the thank you for the crown there. Kadyrov is the leader of Chechnya, a military leader. He's a jerk, a big friend of Putin. They've been fighting there in Ukraine, and he's pissed as well. He criticized the Russian military's retreat and said if the strategy didn't change quickly, he would speak to, quote, the leadership of the country, meaning Putin. Again, interesting, because this is also embarrassing to Putin, because you now have another leader who's his big buddy going public and saying, this is unacceptable. Why are you doing this? In other words, someone's to blame for a F up. Was it Vlad? Was it somebody else? Oh, yes, my other buddy who we're going to see in a minute, this guy, Vladimir Soloviev? Vladimir Soloviev. He's a big Russian propagandist. He's the host, and I'm going to show you a long clip in a second. He's the host of that nightly show on Russia One, where they often talk about which country they're going to nuke. Remember at the beginning of the war? Remember actually at the beginning of the war, because we were talking about all the countries, and then Daniel from Ireland was like, they're not talking about Ireland. Aren't we going to get nuked? And finally they threatened Ireland, and it was like, yay. But remember, they were going to go after Berlin. They're going after London. They were like Paris. They kept bragging about their nukes, right? This is this guy. So he's a jerk. He's the one also that I showed you the other day. And I showed you how despondent and sort of depressed he was getting. He kind of, he was sort of talking to the show, and he's kind of talking like this. It goes, the news is very hard tonight. I mean, he was just energy gone from this guy. Okay. So he got on there the other night and called for the execution of Russian commanders who allowed the counteroffensive in Kharkiv to happen. I mean, that's great news, because again, there's but even better. I mean, that's great. They keep claiming, and you'll see some in the clip I'm about to show you, they keep claiming that the big problem is NATO weapons. None of this would be happening if we're not fighting Ukraine. We're fighting 30 NATO countries. And I've mentioned this before, but it still blows my mind. And I kind of wish somebody would throw it back at them, because it's an admission that Russia can't beat NATO, that NATO is stronger than Russia, and that NATO can kick Russia's ass. And it's an interesting admission, right? Because if Ukraine can do it with some NATO weapons and not, frankly, our best and brightest weapons, we haven't given them our planes, we haven't given them our NATO tanks, right? We've given the HIMARS, but we only gave them the HIMARS that can go like 40 to 60 miles, not the HIMARS the missiles for the HIMARS, the rockets that can go 190 miles, 300 kilometers, right? So if they're saying, well, you got to understand why we got our asses kicked because it's NATO, then they're admitting we can kick their ass. And I just think it's an interesting observation that nobody's really been sort of throwing at the Russians as part of the propaganda war. Oh yeah, now I'm going to show you the good clip. So let me go back to my main setup here. Oop, my brand. This should work. I think this is the one. Yeah, this works. Yeah, this works well enough. All right, I'm going to show you a really good clip. This was from that Russia One show. This was, I believe, last night. It was either Saturday night or Sunday night. I don't recall which, but I was watching it this weekend and so freaking out. And I was like, oh my God, I've got to show this on Monday. It is a 6.5 minute clip. I'm going to show you most of it because I went through it and I realized there really isn't much that I said, oh, I'm going to stop now. It's that good. These guys are pissed off. They're freaking out and they're fighting amongst themselves. It's really good. So let me show you this. And as I said, I'm going to probably let the whole thing run because it's really good.
Президента Путина, что спецоперация будет эффективной, короткой, по мирному населению бить не будем, только зайдем, Росгвардия, там, кадыровцы все наведут порядок и так далее. Вот эти люди, ну, просто подставили всех нас очень сильно.
Но эти люди есть, вы уверены?
Конечно, есть. Президент же не сам как бы сидел и думал, дай-ка я начну спецоперацию. Кто-то приходил, говорил, что украинцы сдадутся, все в Россию попросят. Кто же это ему говорил?
Hang on, I've got to make sure this is the right one. 1 second. This might be the one from the other day. Hold on. There's a new one here. Let me just look and make sure this is the new one. Oops. Up. 1 second, guys. I'm doing so many of these things. No, this is the one. It's from yesterday. Yeah, this is the one. Hold on. This is the one.
Президента Путина, что спецоперация будет эффективной, короткой, по мирному населению бить не будем, только зайдем, Росгвардия, там, кадыровцы все наведут порядок и так далее. Вот эти люди, ну, просто подставили всех нас очень сильно.
Но эти люди есть, вы уверены?
Конечно, есть. Президент же не сам как бы сидел и думал, дай-ка я начну спецоперацию. Кто-то приходил, говорил, что украинцы сдадутся, разбегутся, все в Россию попросят. Кто же это ему говорил, в конце концов, да?
Да и на телевидении говорили, Андрей Ильич,
здесь говорили. Мы подошли к черте, за которой надо вот просто понимать простую вещь. Победить Украину теми ресурсами, которые сейчас Россия там пытается воевать в режиме колониальной войны, да? Контрактники воюют, там, значит, ЧВК и так далее, мобилизации нет.
За риторикой следите.
Ну, это невозможно абсолютно, потому что российская армия, там противостоит вообще сильная армия, которая по полной программе поддерживает сильнейшее в экономическом, технологическом отношении государства Европы, да, в частности.
То есть вы предлагаете мобилизацию провести, военную мобилизацию, не мобилизацию там сознания или экономики?
Начать переговоры о прекращении войны и перейти к политическим вопросам.
Сергей Михайлович, начать переговоры или действовать так, как вот Богдан Анатольевич предлагает?
Никаких нацистским режимом Зеленского быть не может. Нацистский режим Зеленского должен быть уничтожен.
Господин Надеждин считает, что у нас
или мобилизация, война в полный рост.
Я напомню, что недавно совсем Владимир Ильич очень правильно сказал, мы еще не начинали. Ну, когда надо будет, начнем.
Ну, так уже вот
мобилизации не нужно.
Надо или начать, или уже расходиться.
У нас хватает сил, и все решается.
Простите, а чего мы ждем? Вот вы говорите, хватает сил. Мы слышим, что все идет по плану. Но неужели кто-то всерьез верит, что 6 месяцев назад план был, чтобы сейчас мы там оставляли Бакалею, контрнаступление отражали, в Харьковской области не смогли взять Харьков.
Балаклею. Сказано, надо не забывать, коллеги. Мы воюем сегодня с блоком НАТО, руками украинцев, в том числе хорошо подготовленных. И армия там серьезная, и вооружение серьезное.
И наша военная разведка могла предсказать.
Поэтому это процесс непростой, война есть война. И все предсказать и предугадать невозможно, но силы есть, а самое главное, есть политическая воля, и дело будет доведено до конца, до нашей победы.
Война – это очень комплексное понятие. И там есть и политическая, и есть психологическая составляющая. Вот нам за последние несколько дней нанесли очень чувствительный психологический удар. Что касается не товарища Надеждина, то еще раз прошу следить за языком. Потому что даже в проброс говорить про колониальные войны недопустимо в нашем случае. Это первое. Второе. Вы политик с таким большим стажем, неужели не можете подняться на одну голову и окинуть весь театр военных действий, а он включает в себя Западную Европу и США? Или вот вы действительно думаете из того, что вы говорите, что мы там протырились через границу и пытаемся отгрызть себе кусочек территории? Идет глобальная война, это ее фрагмент. И именно отсюда надо из этого исходить.
Слушайте,
для того, чтобы
глобальная война, я надеюсь, не начнется. А вот если она начнется, то соотношение сил будет точно не в нашу пользу.
Она уже
на секунду.
Есть две теории, как вот со всем этим можно бороться. Первые говорят, что нужно просто жестче работать на освобожденных территориях, СМЕРШ, выявление каких-то диверсантов и так далее, и так далее. Вторые говорят нам, что этого мало, и нужно на территории, собственно, с которой отправляют этих террористов, территории государства Украины, делать что-то, что отрезвит людей, отправляющих этих террористов. Ваш принцип какой? Первый, второй или
Я
какой-то
думаю,
третий?
что ни первый, ни второй случай не поможет обеспечить в полной степени безопасность. И вот эти акты, эти преступления будут совершаться вне зависимости от того, насколько, так сказать, жестко будет действовать СМЕРШ.
То есть вы хотите сказать, что это с нами навсегда? Вы сейчас говорите, что это не остановить?
На очень долго. Да? На очень долго. Да. Вот он и сейчас есть эксперт, который дословно говорил, что российские военные рискуют погибнуть, зайдя в Одессу, только, значит, от объятий одесситов, влюбленных в русских. Значит, это практически дословно. Случилось то, что случилось после 24 февраля. Мы все понимаем прекрасно, что это не так. Что одесситы не хотят обнимать русских военных. И этот же самый эксперт сегодня, вчера, позавчера и завтра на федеральном телеканале говорит, надо идти до конца, надо идти до конца и так далее. Я задаюсь вопросом, если эта экспертиза, этот анализ в первом случае был не просто ошибочен, а, можно сказать, преступно ошибочен, да, катастрофичен. Почему я должен слушать и прислушиваться к мнению этого же эксперта, который сейчас мне говорит, что нужно идти до конца?
Что необходимо еще, чтобы население на местах, люди на местах поддерживали нас, идеологически поддерживали нас. И для этого и не только на освобожденных территориях. Для этого необходимо с ними, понимаете, рассказывать украинцам, что их не существует как этноса, как народа, что украинского языка не существует, это не может вызвать их симпатию.
Эти обстреливают, а мы должны разговаривать. Вот, мне кажется, это какие-то несоизмеримые кислые с мягким.
Надо реалистично подходить к людям, которые там живут, и говорить им о том, как выглядит их будущее, да, вместе с Россией. Но кем они будут в России? Правильно. Кем они будут себя ощущать, себя чувствовать? Если они считают себя украинцами, то сколько бы им ни говорили там Холмогоровы или какие-то еще, понимаете, наши люди, что их не существует, понимаете, говорить человеку, что его нет, отрицать его сам,
так, мы сейчас
значит вызвать его,
и не будет.
Вызвать его
Мне кажется, что это все надо было делать или раньше, или надо будет делать чуть позже, когда военная фаза закончится. А вот насколько быстро она закончится, это вопрос.
Нам нужно выиграть войну на Украине. Мы должны ликвидировать там нацистский режим, а после этого кто еще захочет, пусть приходит, и мы с ним поговорим.
И сколько лет мы будем это делать, Саша?
Сколько надо.
Очень хорошо.
Сколько надо, столько
Спасибо
будет.
за честный ответ.
Потому что это специальная военная операция, которую некоторые, я тоже называю Великой Отечественной.
То есть мои 10-летние дети еще повоевать успеют. Правильно я понимаю?
I mean, did you catch the last part? He goes, so my 10-year-old kids, and he goes, yes, your 10-year-old kids can fight in this war in 10 years? I mean, that was insane. This is the same show that kept going in circles talking about how they all wanted to nuke us, right? And now they're all blaming each other. That was insane. That's why I just hope it wasn't too long for you guys, but that's why I wanted to show the whole clip, because that was just insane. And I mean, first of all, the fact that this kind of thinking is even happening in Russia is great, but also the fact that they showed it on TV, unlike, you know, the big popular network and the big popular primetime show in the evening. I mean, I just have a hard time believing. This is what's weird to me, because I don't get how it works over there, because I can't believe that Putin's people told them, sure, go and do this. right? This is okay. This show tonight, that sounds like a good topic to get into. I mean, where did like the guys in particular, that young kid at the end, and also the guy at the beginning with the glasses and a little beard or mustache, why they felt safe saying what they said is very strange to me. I don't get it. I mean, I really don't get it. Then again, there are some people, a lot of they are patriots, I guess, and they felt it was worth risking their lives to speak out about this disaster for their country, amazing. But yeah, the show is on every night. And that was Julia Davis. I meant to mention Julia Davis is amazing. She's on Twitter. You can follow her on Twitter. Google her name, Julia Davis. You'll see. And she does this Russian media monitor and does an amazing job grabbing like the best Russia clips. She watches Russian TV, so you don't have to. She's Ukrainian born, and goes through all of it, so you don't have to. It's very interesting, and puts the subtitles and everything. Let's move on from this. So Steve Hall, thank you for the waving man on TikTok. Steve Hall is a former CIA head of Russia, heading the Russian section at the CIA, retired now. He was on CNN today, and they asked him about that clip. And they said, is this like a sign that Putin's in trouble, whatever? He said, look, I mean, actually, it wasn't that clip. They asked him about the 18 people from the various districts, the 18 legislators saying they wanted Putin, thrown out of office or indicted or whatever it was, prosecuted. And he said, he didn't see that making a big difference. What he thought was interesting, though, is that this kind of discussion was happening. He said, 3 months ago, you wouldn't have seen a bunch of legislators get up and call for Putin to be thrown in jail or whatever. You wouldn't have seen that. The fact that you're seeing that now, he thinks is causing, he says that the intelligence heads, the intelligence and the security heads in Moscow, he goes, are watching what's happening with those districts, for example, those legislators calling for Putin to go to jail. And he goes, and it's giving them pause. They're watching very closely. My suspicion is they're also watching things like this show. What he said the thing to look out for, Putin doesn't need to worry about, legislators in Moscow and St. Petersburg not liking him. That's not what he has to worry about. He has to worry about other senior leaders, particularly the intelligence services, and thinking or trying to decide how far do we let this go? Meaning, how far do we sit back as mind you, the intelligence leaders is not like in America. In America, the CIA does have the CIA doesn't work domestically anyway. But in Russia, intelligence is not just an analysis. It's actually on the ground, state security people keeping the dictatorship in place. And therefore, they worry about the dictatorship losing control. Okay. So his point was the intelligence services, the state security people are going to be looking at all of this and saying, how far do we let this go before we have to clamp down? Or he said, how far are we going to let Putin go before we have to act? So they may act against the Russian populace, or they may act against Vladimir Putin, because they say, okay, the country is starting to have way too much turmoil. And he didn't mention this, but you throw in not just the turmoil, but the fact that their army is getting its butt kicked, right? Nobody thinks the Russian army matters anymore. I mean, they're big and they've got a lot of artillery, but everyone thinks the Russian army is kind of a joke. That's not great for Russia moving forward. And we think we think their weapons are a joke, which means it's not going to help Russian arms sales either. The Russians are responding, by attacking Ukraine's electrical power grid. They attacked the electrical infrastructure for providing electricity to the city in Kharkiv this weekend. Kharkiv went dark, and now it's better. But Vlad actually sent me a video yesterday. Was it this morning or yesterday? Showing me explosions at the what probably were the power stations and things like that. Some video that was getting shared around, my friend Vlad. And they attacked the electricity in other cities. They also, this weekend, effectively shut down the Zaporizhia nuclear reactor. Remember, this is the reactor in southern Ukraine that the Russians took over at the beginning of the war. There are still Ukrainian staff running the reactor, but the Russians, they've got troops and weapons inside of the reactor area because they're in charge. Their military is in charge of the region now, and this reactor provides. I had read 20% of Ukraine's energy. The other day I saw somebody say up to 35% of Ukraine's energy. So I don't know. Okay, but either way, even if it's just 20%, that's a fifth of their energy in one reactor. Well, I believe it was yesterday the Ukrainians finally had to shut down the reactor because they realized they couldn't keep it safe. The Russians had again bombed and cut off the electricity to the reactor, so they would have only been able to have the cooling systems running for the nuclear fuel rods with backup generators using diesel fuel. And that's just not safe to keep doing. And they shut it down. They're in the process of shutting down the reactor. Really sucks for Ukraine. And I will say this, considering the Russians are now bombing Ukraine's electrical infrastructure overall, it sure looks like this is part of a larger strategy the Russians had all along to cut off the power in Ukraine. Oh yeah, this was interesting. But that Trent Telenko guy I was telling you about, the military analyst earlier, who was talking about the trains and the weapons and things on the trains that the Ukrainians had captured in the east, he said that if the Russians want to start going after electricity, they're playing a dangerous game. Because he said with just using some drones from Alibaba, remember Alibaba, the big, Chinese online like Amazon, they sell drones. The drones are $5,000 to $10,000. But the Ukrainians have been masterful at using these drones and souping them up with all sorts of bombs and everything else. I had read the other day, maybe yesterday, that the analysts think that it was one of these drones that the Ukrainians used to attack those air bases last month. Remember, in Crimea. So what this guy is saying is it would be very easy for Ukraine to do something that the British learned by accident during World War II. There was, I forget how the story begins, but the Brits were doing something with balloons and attached to like electrical wires and some kind of whatever it was. The balloons had long electrical wires running on them, and it broke. And I don't know if it's because the Nazis bombed it or whatever they did, but it broke. The balloons I think maybe it was a bad storm, I think. The balloons got loose, and these balloons they're like kind of weather balloon kind of things, get loose, and they start traveling across the channel, the English Channel. And they're dragging along with them these electrical cables. Well, a few hours later, once there's been enough time for these balloons to float across the English Channel and then over mainland Europe, they're getting reports of electrical outages in 3 different countries the balloons passed over. And what they found was these electrical cables, I didn't get the details of this, but I think it's the cables literally, running over an electrical wire, right? The electricity going through wires overhead and it touching and shorting everything out, that it was just knocking out the power left and right. So what this guy said is it's a very simple but effective tactic to take a drone, for example, a spool of carbon thread, he said, and you set that drone on a long distance mission. And he said there are some drones that can go far enough into Russia that the Russian electrical grid is so poor and so simple that it wouldn't be very difficult to cause like massive electrical outages in Russia, even though Ukraine is where Ukraine is. So food for thought. Let's see what the Ukrainians do next. There were reports, I didn't get any more on this. There were reports of explosions in Taganrog, Russia, which is basically, I'm trying to think. It was sort of here and over. I want to say maybe it was near Rostov, I think. But basically, if you've got the map, I'll pull the map up again. Hold on. That initial map. Yeah, like pretty much down here, I'm gonna say, in Russia, like over here, not very far from Ukraine, but it's far across the Russian lines because the Russians control all that territory in red. So the Ukrainians, there was talk. Nobody knows what actually happened, whether it was the Ukrainians or not, but there were some explosions in the town of Taganrog, Russia, which some of the folks I follow found very interesting and very surprising. Hang on a sec. Oh, what happened here, Rob? Sorry, Rob is showing something. Oops. hang on, Rob. I'm seeing the second part of the. Hold on. Rob is showing a story from the Washington Post. The result was the broadcast of unusually tense scenes to millions of Russian households with some uncharacteristically blunt concessions. What is that referring to, Rob? Rob Wall? Is that referring to the shows I showed, or is that something else? Just curious. I'm going to keep going, but if somebody can weigh in and answer that question, what is that? But in any case, yes, so there was a large explosion. There was video of it across the Russian border into Russia near Rostov. The question is, did the Ukrainians do it? Did the Russians just screw up and blew something of their own up? Or are the Russians themselves trying to, will Putin start to do something at home and start to blow things up and say, oh, look, the Ukrainians, they're attacking our land. They're attacking our country now. We have to have a nationwide mobilization, a nationwide draft, right, to go after the Ukrainians. The Russians still don't have a draft, keep in mind. And the thought has been that they need one if they're going to beat Ukraine, but Putin's been so afraid of there being a popular uproar if he has one, and it admits the fact that he screwed up. This was a 3 days. This wasn't even a war. This is a special military operation, right? That's what the Russians have to call it. It wasn't a war. It was just a special little easy thing, 3 day, 4 day trip. So let's see if they do a military operation, but mobilization, a nationwide draft. But if they do, he may have to justify it. Oh, there's my Aflac duck. Thank you for that on TikTok. He has to justify it. And maybe he justifies it by having some really bad things happen in Ukraine, in Russia, excuse me. Okay, that's it. Okay, so the Washington Post, I'm sorry, I'll pull it up again. So the Washington Post was referring to the clip I showed you guys earlier, the 6-minute clip from Russian TV, in which several of the pundits were saying this war is a disaster. One of them said, we need to get out. We need I love, my favorite part was the host says to him, oh, so are you saying we need a nationwide mobilization? He goes, I'm saying we need a peace treaty now. We need to end the war. I mean, really, really difficult conversation for Russian TV. And that's where this quote from the Washington Post is, that it broadcasts scenes to millions of Russian households with uncharacteristically blunt concessions, conceding how poorly the war was going. No, it's amazing. I've only got a little bit more to give you guys, and then we'll jump into the questions. Sorry, today was a little more, maybe I'll be willing to go over a little of our time today because there was so much to report, because this has been amazing what Ukraine's been accomplishing. I didn't want to cut back too much of the news. Kherson, just to report really quick, Kherson, which is, I will set this up so that I've got a Ukrainian map to show you. Kherson over here. Okay, Crimea is the land at the bottom. Ukrainian, but the Russians are occupying it. And if you look the red crescent like this, the end of the red crescent, that whole province there is the Kherson province, and the Kherson town is there as well towards the top of it. So whenever I mention Kherson, it's the end bit of the crescent right above Crimea. Okay, so it's over there. Kherson, this I think this was from Institute for the Study of War as well, the good defense think tank. In the south near Kherson, Russia is likely struggling to bring sufficient reserves, military reserves, forward across the Dnipro River to the front line. An improvised floating bridge Russia started over 2 weeks ago remains incomplete. Ukrainian long-range artillery is now probably hitting crossings of the Dnipro River so frequently that Russia cannot carry out repairs to damaged bridges. So this was what just to talk about this area quickly, but this was the area we've been talking about for the last couple months, where the Ukrainians have been hitting the bridges over and over and over, those 3 bridges over and over and over, because there's a pocket of 20,000, maybe 25,000 Russian troops to the north and west of that river. All the rest, I will get a different map of the river again to show you guys, but basically almost all of that whole red is east this way of the river, cutting Ukraine in two. There's a little pocket of Russians on the other side of the river. a little, 20,000, and the Ukrainians have been bombing the bridges just south of them in order to stop them from being able to escape to the rest of the occupied territory, but also to stop them from getting reinforcements from the occupied territory. And what Institute for the Study of War is saying today is not only has Ukraine sufficiently damaged the bridges, but they keep knocking out the pontoon bridges, the floating bridges that the Russians keep constructing, so that there is no crossing the river at all. The Russians can't fix the bridge because the Ukrainians bomb it again, and they can't put an effective pontoon bridge because every time they do, the Ukrainians bomb it. So it's making things very difficult, which is good. Well, that's interesting. Matt is weighing in. I believe the explosion, so you're talking in across the Russian border, was caused by an accident involving 2 Russian Su-25s. Ooh, fighter jets. There's a footage of the accident on YouTube. Ooh. Now, is the Su-25 the fighter jets? I always forget which is which. I know they're Russian planes, but if they're fighter jets, I didn't want to say fighter jets without being sure. That would be great if that's what it is. And finally, almost finally, I'm going to call this quits, I think, with this. Yeah. The Medusa, which is a really good publication over there, is reporting that I always forget Medusa. Is Medusa Ukrainian or Russian? I'm totally spacing out. So they're fighter jets. I'm totally spacing out today. Sorry. Medusa, I think, is Ukrainian. I'm spacing out here. Reports that sources close to the Kremlin say that the sham referenda are no longer going to happen. Remember, they were going to hold referendum to try to have the Ukrainians vote and say, oh, we want to be a part of Russia. Now they put it totally on hold because the entire thing is a disaster. All right, go to the main screen. We've got time for questions, and I'll go a little over because this presentation took so long. But again, this was good. Today was good. I mean, this was a really good day. A good weekend, a good 5 days. But yeah, let's get rolling and start the questions. Do you think Russian propaganda about fighting the whole of NATO is having a detrimental effect on the morale of the Russian frontline soldiers? I mean, Mac, it's just so weird to me. I guess like at first thinking of propaganda, at first people go, oh, they're thinking of the Russian people. You're right. We're not just fighting Ukraine. We're fighting all of NATO. That's a whole different question. We know we hate NATO. We know we can beat NATO in the end with our great weapons and our great, Russian military. But NATO is strong, and we know NATO's strong. That's why it's so difficult. So, like, that argument works. But again, then people start going, well, but we're not really fighting NATO. We're fighting Ukrainians. And you told us the Ukrainians were pushovers, and they didn't know how to fight, and their government was Nazi and oppressing them, and that we were going to come and liberate them, and they were going to go, yay! That's as the pundit said on the Russian TV. Who said they were going to hug us? They didn't hug us, So I don't know. On the frontline troops, there's got to be a little bit of an element, although the frontline troops already know what's going on. They know they're getting their butts kicked. They know their buddies are getting killed. They know a lot of their buddies are getgetting killed. They know they had to run. Somebody this weekend had said, there was a quote. Oh, I wish I could remember who it was from. Some famous, maybe it was Clausewitz or some famous military, mind. And he was talking about the panic that is spread by, fleeing troops. And the idea here, actually, you've seen this on TV shows too. The idea is it can be better to have troops live and run in panic than to kill them, because the ones who live and run in panic freak out all the rest of the troops, because they go to the other troops panicked and they go, what happened? And they go, oh my God, it's gone. The entire town's gone. We had the entire town. Everything's gone. They got all our equipment. I mean, so all of a sudden those troops start to go, holy crap, these people are coming for us. So they're already pretty freaked out. I don't know that what the TV show will do, I guess. What this TV show is doing is the entire Russian population just got told, okay, everybody's admitting things aren't going well, right? So now these people call their kids, and next time they have a phone call with the kids, and mom starts saying, yeah, I saw something on the news that things aren't good. And he goes, Mom, it's really not. But now mom is starting to get more worried. I don't want to sort of branch this too much, but mom is getting more worried when she calls you. And let's face it, if mom's getting more worried, you're getting more worried that mom is worried about you. You want mom to make you feel good. You don't want mom to go, oh my God, are you going to get killed? So none of this is helping. Elise is saying she saw the Su-25 crash video. 2 took off close together and 1 either clipped a wing or stalled on the tight turn just after takeoff. Oh my God. What a bunch of just F-ups, Jesus Christ. Wow. Oh, now let me remind folks, sorry, I wasn't reminding you TikTokers. So I will look on the screen, but also put your questions on my profile. Go to my TikTok profile. You'll see down in the profile the link for the live event, and then next to it says Q&A. Put the questions in the Q&A because that allows me to pull them up more easily. I can look at the screen, but they fly by quickly on the screen, so I don't see all of them. Exactly. Moms are about the POWs coming home and coming home alive. Belarus is staying quiet, which is worrisome. At least the assessment the other day from, I think it was British intelligence, defense intelligence, was they don't think the Belarusians are going to be doing anything. Again, I will show you that map. Belarus. So you see the blue. Actually, you see the blue, kind of the end of the blue over there. Okay. You go down a little and you see Kyiv. The big black dot is Kyiv, the Ukrainian capital. If you go up from Kyiv, straight up and a little bit to the right, you see that line that goes like this at the very top of the map. That line is the border between Russia and Belarus. So that's where Belarus is. So Russia's there, Belarus is there, and then Poland is over there. And I'll bet that's Romania. I don't have my glasses on, but I'm guessing the big country down here is Romania. Then you get, exactly, that would be Romania, right? Because then you've got Moldova. It's funny. I never knew all my geography very well in this region, and I've had to, like everybody, I've had to learn it much better. So Belarus is up there. When the Russians first attacked, they came down. Remember, the blue is not water. The blue is simply land that the Ukrainians liberated. There's some water there, but it's not water. The Russians came down like this through Russia, boom, boom, and then boom up Crimea. And they also went to Belarus and down. So the concern was, would the Belarusians ever enter the war? A lot of folks don't think so. They think the Belarusians can't the dictator's doing as much as he can for Putin, which is letting the Russians launch attacks from Belarus. But at least the experts are saying they still don't think they're going to enter the war. Oops, hang on. Let me get rid of the, I'm liking this with the various little pictures and stuff. I think this is working well. Like I said, it took me a second to figure it out, but point finger the other way. Which other? Well, the problem is I can point to this, but if the map is that big, it's hard for me to point where things are for you guys. Sorry. Oh, I did get my fella. Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Daniel. I got my, I can show you guys. I got my NAFO fella, but she's redoing it a little because it's not quite Greek enough. But NAFO, I had told you guys, is the North Atlantic Fella Organization. And this, I'm assuming woman, but who knows, on TikTok called Comma Chameleon or Comma Camellia or whatever, came up with the phrase in like May, end of May, NAFO. And it was instead of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization for NATO, it's the North Atlantic Fella Organization. And it's just this like goofy name she came up with. And people started, well, actually, let me ask you, you guys can't see my map, my mouse though, real quick. When I do this, you can't see my mouse. That's the problem. See? Yeah. If I point to the mouse, you don't see it. So anyway, the thing with NAFO is it's a meme. It's a meme that is using the dog from Dogecoin. I'll show you mine, which is this Shiba Inu picture. And people, they've like Camellia or whatever, and her friends got together, and they've got a whole bunch of people who are making these for people. You give a donation to like St. Javelin or one of the other big charities, and you take a picture, a screen capture of your PayPal donation. You send it to them on Twitter and tell them what you want. And a couple days later, they give you your thing. So mine, I told them I wanted, here, I'll show you. I wanted I'll show you this one because this guy's, he's rather hot as well. This is a Greek Evzon. Now I always forget on the screen, this isn't too bad. It's hard to tell because it's always a little too bright. Let me try to lower the brightness. Hold on. It's always a little too bright when I try to show you guys things with my phone. Oh, that works. Oh, well, it's not great. It's okay. But you get it. This is traditional Greek outfit, actually from my region where my family is from. in the north originally. It's long story where my family's from. We're from southern Greece, but we originally came from the northwest near Albania. This is also, it was traditional Albanian garb as well. So that it came from the region up there and then got adopted by, long story actually on how it came about. But anyways, the ceremonial soldiers in Athens guarding the parliament, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, all that kind of stuff, they're evzons, they're called. And they wear that outfit with the hat, with the long braid, you know, and the skirt. So they made mine. I wanted it to look like him, and I wanted it to have Sasha in it. And he did a good job. They did a great job, but it's I mean, they did a great job, but the problem is the skirt is a little too long. So I'm having them redo it. But there's Sasha. I think it's really cute. Oh, but here's what I'm telling you. I'm not telling you this like as some goofy, stupid thing. The Russians are livid about this, livid about NATO. They think, and they call the different individual guys fellas because it's the North Atlantic Fella Organization. So like when they say, oh, John, here's your fella, right? Fella, which is American slang, maybe British too, for fellow. And again, fellow, it's an old word in English, meaning like, oh, hello, old. I almost have to put on a British accent to use like, hello, old fellow. How are you? Like, you know, guy. I don't know, like fellow. Or you're a jolly old fellow. We just don't use the word anymore in American English. So fella is slang for that. It just sounds funny. The Russians are convinced it's a CIA plot. And that literally the CIA came up with this meme and the CIA is controlling it. There was a great, I should have copied this for you. Russia Today, RT, you know, their big propaganda organ, does this story just a couple days ago about how, you know, NATO, which some think was created by the CIA, was used to push back on the Amnesty report. Remember that Amnesty human rights report about Ukraine everybody was pissed off about? On the Amnesty report and CBS News, remember when CBS News got the story wrong about the weapons going to Ukraine, how none of them make it to the front or whatever, and it was total bullshit. It was just total bullshit what they reported, and they had to retract it. RT said that was NATO. NATO did both of those, and people are wondering who are they really? Oh my God! Oh, they also say that NATO has been mass reporting Russians online and getting them banned. It's literally a bunch of people like me who wanted to get the dog. I wanted the dog. I'm supporting Ukraine. I'm doing what I can, but it's really not like somebody secretly says, "Oh, hey, you know, time to go after the Russians with our Shiba Inu dogs." This is, and finally, the other funny thing is, this is the same dog, literally, that is used for the Dogecoin meme, which is a whole other thing. But if you follow crypto at all, it's just funny. It makes it even funnier. But yeah, so this is the fella. Fella is still used in British English. That's funny. It's brilliant. And again, they're freaking out. That's the best part. They're freaking out. Anyway. Alec. Since the U.S. has supplied so many weapons to Ukraine, once the war ends, do you think this has damaged Russia-U.S. relations for a long time? No, not really. I mean, Russia-U.S. relations, look, when Russia attacked our election in 2016, which was an act of war, Russia seriously damaged U.S. relations. When Russia helped get Donald Trump elected, they seriously damaged U.S. relations. I mean, Russia and U.S. relations were already in trouble to start with. This has made it worse, but not because we helped Ukraine. Once Russia invaded Ukraine, they showed us that they were the same bad people they were during the Soviet years. It's a bad country, and they're doing bad things, and they do bad things to their neighbors. They do bad things to their own people. It's become a dictatorship again. I mean, this is so. I don't buy the argument. I'm not going after you, but I'm saying I don't buy the argument that the U.S. supplying weapons has damaged relations. Russia invading Ukraine damaged relations. And the U.S. had no choice but to defend Ukraine because I think we morally have to defend the Ukrainians. And that's a position that I had with Kosovo as well. But also it's international interest because Russia's going after Europe next, or the rest of Europe, excuse me, because Ukraine is Europe. What else we got? Oh, let me look and see if the TikTok folks put any questions on TikTok here. Hang on. Hope you did. So remember in the Q&A, and as I said, I'll go till like 10 after since there was a lot of content. I'm really excited about the guests. I read that Russia has threatened world war if it loses. I mean, the thing is, magic photo man from Miami. Russia's always threatening nuclear war. I mean, I don't mean to be facetious, but they've threatened nuclear war. Remember Boris Johnson said like 2 or 3 months ago, and Boris Johnson said, "I think the number of times Russia has threatened. I believe we're at 30." Because somebody asked him the same thing. Oh, Russia threatened nuclear war. He goes, "Haven't they threatened it like 30 times now?" So I just don't care that they're threatening nuclear war. Nuclear war isn't the problem. I mean, in a sense, it's not the problem. Sorry, my lips are dry. Russia's not launching ICBMs at anybody. I've talked about this a lot. We have like strategic nuclear submarines. The French have them. The British have them. Our nuclear submarines have lots and lots of nuclear missiles. There is no way that Russia can reach our submarines. There's no way that we can reach Russia's submarines. That means whoever attacks the other side first with nukes will get blown out of the sky, not by the sky, blown out of the planet by the nuclear submarine nuclear missiles of the other guy. So we're not attacking Russia with nukes. They're not attacking us with nukes. So I don't buy that. What worries people is, a gradual increase. For example, Russia uses tactical nuclear weapons, which are small nuclear weapons. And it sounds funny to say so, but there literally are small nuclear weapons. They would be used in a battlefield. If you wanted to take out enemy headquarters, you might, we wouldn't, but you might use a nuclear weapon to do it because you literally take out the entire headquarters. It's not like, oh, you dropped a bomb and it hit the quarter of the headquarters. A nuke is taking out everything, but it's a small nuke, so it's not like something, it's not like something we dropped on Hiroshima. It's going to be smaller. Or these nuclear weapons in the submarines, which are way bigger than what was used in Hiroshima. I mean, really scary stuff, So forgot where I was going with that. Anyway, World War. So that's the bigger concern some people have, is what happens if the Russians use those nukes and, we feel compelled to use some of our own nukes, or I don't know, like that's the thing. Well, no, and that's true. Mrs. Mahalati, my friend's mom, saying the Russian threat is a joke. If Ukraine can do what they've done, just imagine what the U.S. can do. Correct. The concern is that things get out of control. We're fighting the Russians, and Putin, for example, we start fighting the Russians. We start getting involved, and Putin nukes our troops. Do we, with a local bomb, do we use a small nuclear bomb and nuke his troops? And do the Russians then say, well, let's use a bigger one? And if they use a bigger one, we use a bigger one. I mean, that's the risk of things getting a little out of hand, right? But I still see the Russians. I mean, I forgot who it was. Somebody, was it either somebody we interviewed the other day or somebody I was watching? I can't remember. But Putin is probably less able to use nuclear weapons now than he was before, because now they're getting their butts kicked. And the Russian military brass, if Putin said, okay, let's use nukes, is going to go, are you crazy? Like, we're not even winning this war at this point. You want to use nuclear weapons in Ukraine and guarantee NATO gets involved and basically risk this turning into a nuclear war when we're not even winning this anyway, right? So it might make the Russian people less willing to use them. It might make the military less willing. It might make the military less willing to push the button when Putin says push the button and launch the nukes. So who knows? Oh yeah, I was going to check the Q. Actually, that was one Q&A. Let me find another one. What's going on with Armenia right now? Yeah, there's all sorts of weird stuff going on with Armenia. It looks like Azerbaijan might have invaded Armenia. Literally, this was just happening. Thank you for the cactus. This was just happening right before I came on. I was trying to Google it, but it's, as you can imagine, they fought a war. It's a very complicated conflict. What is it? Nagorno-Karabakh, the sort of region they fought over. It's very complicated. But it looks like Azerbaijan might be invading Armenia, which is interesting. I mean, Russia had I think they still may have peacekeepers there, but clearly Russia's influence has diminished. So that could be part of the reason Azerbaijan's saying, you know what, let's go for it. But I don't know more than that about what's really going on. Let's see, what else we got here? What else? Look for another question. Oops. Oh, that's interesting. Do you see, this is Blake 790 is saying, did you see on Twitter that Belgorod's governor is asking citizens to evacuate? Saw it 2 hours ago, but not sure of the truth. Didn't see that. The thing is, people in Belgorod are starting to get a little freaked out. Belgorod, I told you guys, is that town that is right across the border from Kharkiv. So Kharkiv, remember, look where the red and the blue meet. Look a little bit to the left of the blue, or look a little bit to the left of where they meet, and you see the town of Kharkiv right at the bottom of the blue. And if you go Kharkiv to the border almost diagonally, almost like this, that's 15 miles. Go another 25 miles and you reach the Russian town of Belgorod, which the Ukrainians have attacked before. A lot of ammunition, equipment, fuel comes from that town and helps supply really Russia's entire invading force in the east. So it's been a very important town. The Ukrainians have attacked before. The Ukrainians have also attacked some more, which has, of late, which has sort of freaked people out, and people have been in kind of a mass. About a week ago, they were in a mass panic. So I don't know. Alec is saying he saw a video of cars jamming the roads, fleeing. Was that a new video? Because remember, there was video about a week ago of that too, that the Ukrainians had fired at something, and the people in Belgorod freaked out, absolutely freaked out. Oh, that's interesting. Russia supports Armenia. Okay, I was forgetting who supports who. Thank you, Raymond. I was Googling and got a little confused. Russia supports Armenia. Turkey supports Azerbaijan. Adds a bit of spice to the world. Okay, then that makes sense. Because if Russia supports Armenia, Azerbaijan is seeing that Russia's getting its butt kicked. Azerbaijan is seeing the Russian military isn't as strong as Azerbaijan feared it was, because if Russia is helping protect Armenia, Azerbaijan is seeing that the Russians are getting more and more preoccupied over by Ukraine, that the Russians now cannot afford to send more troops to a second conflict down there with Armenia and Azerbaijan. So the Azeris might be thinking, who knows, they may not have invaded, might be thinking, well, if I were them, I would think, if I wanted to invade, now is certainly a better time than 2 months ago or 5 months ago or 7 months ago. It's better now than it was, because Russia's weaker and Russia can't come to the aid anymore. And finally, as I said, I'm Azeri. I did a calculus 6 months ago before the war started and said, okay, this is how strong Russia is. This is how many troops they've got. This is what it means if I want to invade. Now I'm saying, well, those same number of troops and same number of weapons, they're not as powerful as I thought they were. So now my calculus of the balance of power goes down for Russia versus where it was, simply because I now know Russia's military isn't as good as I thought it was, let alone the fact that Russia's now weaker. Turkey has 20 chess games running at once. That's for sure. Yeah. Seems like it's always Turkey with this stuff, isn't it? Let me do one more question and then I'll call it quits for today, guys. And actually, I'll go to the Discord, though. We can go hang in the Discord. Let me see here. Yep, I covered the districts calling on Putin to resign. Do you think Putin's losing control? Historically, any criticism of the Kremlin or even coverage of events like Beslan 2004 was totally prohibited. I'll say that. Oh, there was a super chat from Melissa. I did. You're right. I'll bring up Melissa's. Let me say this about. Sorry, what were we saying? Okay, I just see what you were saying. I was looking at two things at once. Oh, historically, criticism of the Kremlin. It's pretty weird. It's pretty weird that they're getting away with the criticism. I mean, yes, I don't know where it goes from here, but hang on, taking that off. What you doing, dog? Oh, you want to be covered? My dog wants to be covered again. If I had a better mic, you would have heard below, which meant I'm not covered up. Cover me up. Let me do Melissa's question really quick, and then we'll go to Discord. What is stopping the Russians from more long-range bombing of civilians in the recently freed areas? I mean, nothing necessarily. I mean, one of the problems is that Russia, they've used a lot of their cruise missiles, but they prefer to use dumb missiles, and they've got a lot more dumb missiles. And the dumb missiles meaning they fire them in the direction and they kind of hit whatever. If it hits a shopping mall, if it hits a building, a residential building, all the better from the Russian military's perspective, because they consider civilian casualties acceptable. So nothing's stopping them from doing it. They might. I mean, put it this way, I guess. Russia, it still doesn't make Russia look good if they just bomb civilians, you know? I mean, they're still convincing the Africans and the people in the Middle East that, to be their allies. And it's India has been helping Russia a lot, China-ish. It's harder for India and China to help Russia, even by buying their oil and gas or oil. I think it was the oil and stuff like that, or was it the gas? They're buying energy, though, a lot of it actually for sale. It makes it a little harder if Russia's just committing an even more obvious genocide. So, they could. I mean, clearly, when Russia doesn't do well, they start to bomb things like crazy. They just go after civilians. They go after, now they're going for the electricity. Putin is going to feel like he's got to give Ukraine a bloody nose for what happened in the last 5 days. I don't know. He may. I mean, he's been bombing civilians anyway. He may bomb more. But the only problem is it's not clear what it gets him. At this point, bombing civilians it clearly hasn't made Ukraine less willing to fight. And frankly, the battles of the last 5 days have convinced Ukrainians resistance is not futile. I mean, clearly resistance works, is what we learned from the last 5 days. So the Ukrainians are fired up for a war, and killing civilians will probably fire them up even more. They're running out of cruise missiles. I don't know that they're necessarily running out of dumber bombs, artillery. Well, I mean, the thing is, look, they're getting low on a lot of stuff. Part of the thing is they're trying to keep some of their best stuff in reserve, because what happens if they go to war with America? What happens if they go to war with China? I don't know. I mean, they don't know. Something happens, something gets out of control and the U.S. gets in the war. They've got to keep some of their best weapons and not just use them all. And frankly, the same thing applies to us. We've got to make sure we keep enough of our stuff that we can still fight another war if we have to. Anyway, all right, there you go, guys. So thanks for joining. As I said, really good tomorrow's show, we are going to be talking to Tom Much, who is a New Zealand born. He may be a British citizen now. I'm not sure. We'll have to ask him, but he goes by Kiwi. So New Zealand war reporter Tom Much is joining us at 2 p.m. Central Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. So that's 3 p.m. New York City time. So earlier than our normal show. Going to talk to him about all this stuff. His specialty has been Eastern Ukraine. That's where he's been hanging out the most. So that's where this battle's been happening. He's going to have a lot to tell us. Also, I'm going to talk to him about Amnesty report. He had apparently warned Amnesty International, and he was with Amnesty when they investigated the areas. So that's going to blow up. I mean, he told him it was going to blow up, and it did. Talk about the war crimes, everything. But he's in Ukraine right now. So I think hopefully the connection's good. But he's going to be a really fascinating guest. So that'll be tomorrow's show. And then, as I said, Wednesday, Matt Lewis, who's a Republican, conservative, but very good. Not going to agree with us on everything. Very not a friend of Donald Trump. Definitely concerned about our democracy and where it goes. But, not a pushover either, but that's okay. I don't mind having conservatives on the show. Matt's a good guy. He's a decent human being. So I think he'll be an interesting guest. And then the week after that, next week, we've got David Frum, who will be on Tuesday the 20th. So, all right, guys, like I said, Tom is on tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern time. So make sure you can go to TikTok, the live events, and find that event there and register. And on YouTube, I've already got the event up on YouTube. Actually, I've got Tom and Matt up on YouTube and TikTok. So register for all of those, and you'll get the update. Thank you, guys. Yeah, let's go. We'll go to Discord. So discord.aravosis.com, and we can chat a little bit. And then, as always, I go and have dinner. All right, guys. Thanks for joining. This was good today. All right. See you all. And then I'm going to count to 8. Oop, and there's my nephew. So TikTok catches up. Oop, there we go. I've always got to wait. TikTok is behind you guys. So hold on. There we go. Now I'm going to hang up. All right. Bye, guys.